Desperate plea. The night sky over New Mexico shimmered with stars, a vast canvas of possibility that had always captivated Dr. Elara Reeves. As she adjusted the massive radio telescope at the Arecibo Observatory, she couldn't shake the feeling that tonight was different. Something in the air, perhaps, or just her scientist's intuition. "Come on, universe," she muttered, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "Give me something." As if in answer to her plea, a series of sharp, distinct beeps cut through the usual background static. Elara froze, her heart racing. This wasn't random noise or some distant pulsar. This was a pattern, a message. "Holy shit," she breathed, scrambling to record and analyze the signal. As the data streamed across her screens, Elara's excitement turned to confusion, then awe. The message was complex, carrying information far beyond simple mathematical concepts. It contained language, images, and coordinates. Something was coming to Earth, and it was coming fast. Captain Jake Harrison of the United Earth Defense Force squinted at the swirling vortex of energy that had appeared in low Earth orbit. His small fleet of interceptors held position, weapons primed. "Steady, people," he said into the comm. "We don't know what's coming through that thing. Could be friendly, could be the end of the world. Either way, we're humanity's first line of defense." The vortex pulsed, and a sleek silver ship emerged. It was unlike anything Jake had ever seen, its hull shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence. Before he could issue any orders, his comm crackled to life. "Greetings, warriors of Earth," a melodious, feminine voice filled the cockpit. "I come in peace and with great urgency. I am Queen Zara of the Astari, and I seek your help." Jake exchanged a bewildered look with his co-pilot. Copy that, Queen Zara. This is Captain Jake Harrison of the UEDF. How can we assist?" There was a pause, then. "Captain Harrison, my people face extinction. Our only hope lies in the unique genetic makeup of humanity. I must speak with your leaders immediately." As the alien ship approached, Jake made a split-second decision. "Queen Zara, I'm going to escort you to our primary landing facility. But I warn you, any hostile move, and we'll be forced to open fire." "Understood, Captain. You have my word as ruler of the Astari that we mean you no harm." As Jake's fighter took up position alongside the alien vessel, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Dr. Elara Reeves paced nervously outside the hastily assembled meeting room. After decoding the alien message, she'd been whisked away to this top-secret facility, told only that her expertise would be needed. Now, she found herself waiting alongside military brass and government officials, all equally in the dark about what was to come. The doors swung open, and a collective gasp filled the room. Queen Zara of the Astari entered, flanked by stern-faced security personnel. She was breathtaking, tall and lithe, with skin that seemed to shimmer with starlight. Her eyes, a swirling galaxy of purple and gold, scanned the room before settling on Elara. "You," the Queen said, her voice like music. "You are the one who received our message." Elara nodded, suddenly unable to speak. "Then you, more than any other here, understand the urgency of our plight." The room fell silent as Queen Zara began her tale. The Astari, she explained, were an ancient and advanced race. For millennia, they had served as guardians of peace throughout the galaxy. But now they faced a crisis that threatened their very existence. "A genetic defect, buried deep in our DNA, has begun to manifest," Zara said, her voice heavy with sorrow. "It causes rapid cellular degradation once an Astari reaches maturity. Our scientists have searched for a cure, but to no avail. We are dying, and with us the stability of 1,000 worlds hangs in the balance." Captain Jake Harrison, standing near the back of the room, spoke up. "I'm sorry for your people, Your Majesty, but how can Earth help? Our medical technology is probably primitive compared to yours." Queen Zara's gaze locked onto Jake, and he felt a jolt of electricity run through him. "It is not your technology we seek, brave Captain. It is your DNA. A murmur of confusion rippled through the assembled humans. Ilara stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her awe. Our DNA. What's so special about human genetics? Everything, Zara replied. In all our searches across the galaxy, we have never encountered a species with your genetic diversity and adaptability. Within human DNA lies the key to our salvation. But it is not as simple as taking samples or studying your genome. The Queen paused, seeming to gather her courage. To save my people, I must mate with a human. The resulting offspring would carry the cure within them, a perfect blend of Astari and human genetics that could be used to heal our entire race. The room erupted into chaos. Shouts of disbelief, anger, and even laughter filled the air. Through it all, Queen Zara stood tall, her eyes never leaving Jake's. Quiet. General Hartman's voice boomed over the din. This is a lot to process, Your Majesty. You have to understand our skepticism. How can we be sure this isn't some kind of trick? Zara nodded solemnly. I anticipated your doubts. That is why I have brought proof. She gestured, and one of her attendants stepped forward, carrying a small glowing orb. This contains our entire medical database, as well as a comprehensive history of our people. Study it. Verify my claims. But please do so quickly. Even now, more of my people fall victim to this curse. As the orb was carefully taken for analysis, Ilara found herself drawn to the alien queen. Your Majesty, she said softly, if what you're saying is true, the implications are staggering. Not just for your people, but for humanity as well. The scientific and cultural exchange alone would be unprecedented. Zara smiled, a sad, beautiful thing. Indeed, Dr. Reeves. But I fear we may not have time to fully appreciate the magnitude of this moment. Even now, there are forces at work that would see this union prevented. Jake stepped forward, his soldier's instincts on high alert. What kind of forces? There are factions within my own government who believe that interbreeding with a lesser species is an affront to our genetic purity, Zara explained. They would rather see our race die out than be polluted by human DNA. And then there are the Krell. The Krell? General Hartman asked. A warlike species that has long sought to overthrow Astari influence in the galaxy. They see our weakened state as an opportunity. If they learn of our presence here, they will not hesitate to attack both our worlds. The gravity of the situation settled over the room like a heavy blanket. This wasn't just about saving an alien race anymore. The fate of Earth itself could hang in the balance. So, Jake said, breaking the tense silence, you need a human to mate with. How exactly do you choose? And what happens to them afterward? Queen Zara's eyes seemed to bore into Jake's soul. The choice has already been made, Captain Harrison. From the moment our ships connected, I sensed the compatibility of our life energies. It must be you. Jake blinked, taken aback. Me? But I'm just a soldier. Surely there are better candidates, scientists, diplomats. The union is not merely physical, Zara explained. It requires a melding of minds and spirits. Your courage, your sense of duty, your innate protectiveness. These are the qualities that make you ideal. As for what happens afterward, she trailed off, a hint of uncertainty in her voice for the first time. I cannot say for certain. This has never been done before. You would be revered among my people, of course. But the process itself is not without risk. General Hartman stepped in. Now hold on just a minute. We can't just hand over one of our top pilots for some alien breeding program. We need time to discuss this, to run tests, too. A deafening explosion rocked the building, cutting off the general's protests. Alarms blared as security personnel rushed to secure the room. They're here, Queen Zara said, her voice tight with fear. The Krell have found us. As chaos erupted around them, Jake locked eyes with the alien queen. In that moment, he knew his life would never be the same. Whatever came next, the fate of two worlds now rested in his hands. The reluctant hero's journey. Alarms blared throughout the facility as Jake Harrison instinctively moved to shield Queen Zara. The room erupted into a flurry of activity, with military personnel barking orders and civilians scrambling for cover. "We need to get you to safety, Your Majesty," Jake said, his training kicking in despite the surreal situation. Zara shook her head, her starlight hair shimmering with the movement. "No, Captain, we must reach my ship. It's our only chance of escaping the Krell." General Hartman's voice cut through the chaos. "Harrison, get the Alien Queen to her vessel. We'll provide cover." As Jake led Zara through the winding corridors, Dr. Elara Reeves fell into step beside them. "I'm coming with you," she said, her voice leaving no room for argument. "Doc, this isn't a scientific expedition," Jake protested. Elara's eyes flashed with determination. "This is first contact, Captain. Humanity's first real interaction with an alien species. I'm not letting you face this alone." Before Jake could argue further, the building shook with another explosion. Through a shattered window, they caught a glimpse of the battle raging outside. Sleek, black ships, unmistakably alien in design, filled the sky, exchanging fire with Earth's defensive forces. "The Krell," Zara breathed, her face a mask of sorrow. "They've brought a full invasion fleet." As they raced towards the landing pad where Zara's ship waited, Jake's mind whirled with questions. How had things escalated so quickly? Just hours ago, he'd been on a routine patrol. Now, he was running from alien invaders with an extraterrestrial queen who claimed he was the key to saving her species. They burst onto the landing pad, the wind whipping around them as Zara's silver ship hummed to life. A squad of Krell warriors, their armor a nightmarish blend of chitinous plates and advanced technology, materialized at the far end of the pad. "Go," Jake shouted, drawing his sidearm. "I'll hold them off." But Zara grabbed his arm, her touch sending a jolt of electricity through him. "No, Jake. We need you. I need you." As the Krell opened fire, the trio dove into the ship. The hatch sealed behind them, muffling the sounds of battle. Zara's fingers danced over the controls, and the ship lifted off with a surge of power that pressed them all back into their seats. Through the viewscreen, Jake watched his world fall away, growing smaller as they ascended into the starry void. A lump formed in his throat. He hadn't even had a chance to say goodbye. "I'm sorry," Zara said softly, sensing his turmoil, "but we had no choice. The Krell will not stop until they've destroyed both our peoples." Elara, her face pale but determined, spoke up. "So what's our next move? Where are we going?" Zara's expression was grim. "To my homeworld, Australia. We must warn my people of the Krell threat and complete the union that will save our race." Jake felt a flush creep up his neck. Right, the whole mating to save an alien species thing. He cleared his throat. "About that, I think we need to talk about exactly what this union entails." A small smile played at the corners of Zara's lips. "Of course, Jake. I understand your hesitation. The melding of our species is not something to be taken lightly." Her eyes, those swirling pools of cosmic beauty, met his. "But know this, what I ask of you is more than a mere physical act. It is a joining of minds, of souls. Through our union, we will forge a bridge between our peoples, ensuring the survival of both." Elara leaned forward, her scientific curiosity piqued. "Fascinating. So it's not just about genetics, but some kind of energy transfer." Zara nodded. "Precisely, Dr. Reeves. The Astari are beings of both matter and energy. Our life force, what you might call a soul, is as vital to our existence as our physical bodies. The genetic cure we seek can only be activated through a complete melding of Astari and human essences." Jake ran a hand through his hair, feeling overwhelmed. "And what happens to me in this process? Will I still be me?" Zara's expression softened. "You will be changed, Jake, but not diminished. If anything, you will be more, the first true bridge between our species, possessing strengths and abilities beyond either human or Astari." As the implications of Zara's words sank in, the ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. Krell pursuit craft, Zara growled, her hands flying over the controls. They're faster than I anticipated. Jake's military training kicked in. What are we working with here? Weapons? Shields? This is a diplomatic vessel, Zara replied, executing a series of evasive maneuvers that sent them spiraling through space. We have basic defenses, but nothing that can outmatch a Krell warship. Ilara gripped her seat, knuckles white. Can't we jump to light speed or something? Our faster-than-light drive needs time to charge, Zara explained. We need to buy ourselves a few minutes. Jake's mind raced. They were outgunned and outmaneuvered. But maybe, Your Majesty, does this ship have any kind of energy projection capability? Tractor beams, maybe? Zara nodded, a spark of understanding in her eyes. Yes, we have gravitational manipulators for docking procedures. Perfect, Jake grinned. Aim them at that asteroid field we just passed. If we can disrupt some of those rocks, create a debris field, we can slow down our pursuers. Zara finished, her fingers already implementing Jake's plan. The space behind them erupted into chaos as the asteroid field collapsed, sending a hail of rocky projectiles towards the Krell ships. Alarms blared as their pursuers were forced to break off their attack, weaving desperately to avoid the deadly debris. It worked. Ilara cheered, peering at the sensor readouts. They're falling behind. Zara's ship surged forward, putting distance between them and their attackers. FTL drive charged, she announced, preparing for jump. As the stars around them stretched into streaks of light, Jake felt a moment of vertigo. He was leaving everything he'd ever known behind, hurtling towards an uncertain future on an alien world. Zara's hand found his, her touch both alien and comforting. Thank you, Jake, she said softly. You've already proven yourself more valuable than I could have hoped. Your quick thinking may have saved us all. Jake managed a weak smile. Just doing my job, Your Majesty. Although I've got to admit, this is a little outside my usual mission parameters. Ilara laughed, the sound tinged with a hint of hysteria. I think we're all a bit out of our depth here, but that's what makes it exciting, right? We're literally going where no humans have gone before. As their laughter filled the ship, Jake felt some of the tension ease from his shoulders. They were facing impossible odds, caught between two alien races, with the fate of multiple worlds hanging in the balance. But somehow, in that moment, he felt a spark of hope. The journey to Australia would take several days, even at faster-than-light speeds. As Zara set the ship on autopilot, she turned to her human companions. We should rest. The trials ahead will require all our strength. She led them to a chamber that seemed to shift and reconfigure itself, forming comfortable sleeping pods. As Jake settled into one, marveling at how it molded perfectly to his body, he caught Zara's eye. I know this isn't what you expected when you woke up this morning, she said softly. But I want you to know how grateful I am, Jake. You're giving my people hope. And perhaps you're giving me something I never thought I'd have. Before Jake could ask what she meant, Zara retreated to her own pod. As the lights dimmed, simulating a night cycle, Jake found himself staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. He thought of Earth, of the battle they'd left behind. Had the Krell been repelled, or was his homeworld even now falling under alien domination? He thought of the Astari, a dying race pinning their hopes on his DNA. And he thought of Zara, regal, beautiful, and carrying the weight of her entire civilization on her shoulders. As sleep finally claimed him, Jake's dreams were filled with swirling galaxies and the haunting melody of Zara's voice. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew his life had been irrevocably changed. For better or worse, he was now part of something greater than himself, a cosmic dance that would determine the fate of worlds. Alien politics and human ingenuity. The journey to Australia passed in a blur of alien wonders and tense anticipation. Jake spent hours in the ship's observation deck, marveling at the cosmos streaming by. Ilara divided her time between peppering Zara with questions about Astari science and technology and furiously documenting everything in her tablet. As they approached the Astari homeworld, Zara grew increasingly anxious. "I must warn you," she said, her melodious voice tinged with worry. "Not all of my people will welcome your presence. The faction that opposes interbreeding with other species, they call themselves the Purists, holds significant power in our government." Jake frowned. "I thought you were the queen. Can't you just order them to cooperate?" Zara's laugh was tinged with bitterness. "If only it were that simple, Jake. My position is largely ceremonial. I hold influence, yes, but I cannot simply decree whatever I wish. The Astari pride themselves on their democratic processes." "Politics," Jake muttered. "Some things really are universal." As their ship entered Astrea's atmosphere, Jake and Ilara pressed against the view screen, awestruck. The alien world was a vision of impossible beauty. Crystalline spires that seemed to grow organically from the ground, vast gardens that shimmered with bioluminescent life, and graceful beings that glided through the air on what looked like wings of pure energy. "It's incredible," Ilara breathed, her scientific mind struggling to process the advanced technology seamlessly integrated with nature. Their wonder was short-lived, however. As they approached the central city, a fleet of sleek, aggressive-looking ships rose to meet them. "The Purist faction," Zara growled. "They're blocking our path to the royal palace." A harsh, guttural voice crackled over the ship's communications system. "Queen Zara, you are ordered to surrender yourself and the human abominations you've brought to our world. Submit to decontamination immediately." Jake's hand instinctively went to where his sidearm would usually be. "I don't suppose we can outrun them." Zara shook her head. "Not without risking civilian casualties in the city below." She squared her shoulders, every inch the regal queen. "We have no choice but to land and face the council. But be on your guard. The Purists will stop at nothing to prevent our union." As their ship touched down in a vast plaza, they were immediately surrounded by stern-faced Astari guards. Jake noted with unease that their weapons, while elegantly designed, looked decidedly lethal. "Well," Ilara said, trying for levity, "at least we're making history. First humans on an alien world and all that." Jake managed a tight smile. "Let's just hope we're not the last." They were escorted, Jake couldn't help but think marched, through winding corridors of living crystal to a vast chamber that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. Dozens of Astari, their forms more varied than Jake had expected, sat in tiered seats that spiraled up towards a distant ceiling. At the center of the chamber stood a being that radiated authority. Tall, with skin that shimmered like the surface of a neutron star, he fixed Zara with a disapproving glare. "High Counselor Vex," Zara said, her voice cold. "I see you've taken it upon yourself to arrange a full assembly." Vex's eyes, swerving vortexes of deep space, narrowed. "You bring alien contamination to our world, my queen. Did you truly expect anything less?" As Vex launched into a tirade about genetic purity and the dangers of outside influence, Jake leaned close to Zara. "I thought you said the Astari were all about peace and guardianship. This guy seems intense." Zara sighed. "Fear changes people, Jake. As our population has dwindled and the genetic curse has spread, some have turned to isolation and xenophobia." Their whispered conversation was cut short as Vex's attention snapped to the humans. "And these," he sneered, "are the saviors you would thrust upon us. Primitive beings from a backwater world." Jake felt his temper flare, but Ilara stepped forward before he could say something regrettable. "With all due respect, High Counselor," she said, her voice steady despite the alien hostilities surrounding them, "humanity may be younger than your species, but we are far from primitive. Our adaptability, our diversity, these are strengths, not weaknesses." A murmur rippled through the assembled Astari. Some nodded in agreement, while others scoffed. Vex, however, seemed to swell with righteous anger. "You dare lecture us on strength," he boomed. Your world even now faces destruction at the hands of the Krell. You could not protect yourselves, let alone aid us." "That's not fair," Jake interjected, unable to stay silent any longer. "The Krell attacked us without warning, because of our connection to you. We've been fighting your war without even knowing it existed." Vex sneered. "And you think you can fight it now? That this union will miraculously save us all? I think not. I move that these humans be contained and studied. If there is anything of value in their genetic code, we will find it without resorting to cross-species abomination." As shouts of agreement and protest filled the chamber, Jake felt a moment of despair. How could they possibly overcome generations of fear and prejudice? But then he felt Zora's hand slip into his, a gesture of solidarity that sent a spark of energy through his entire being. He met her eyes and saw in them not just determination, but something deeper. In that moment, Jake realized that this wasn't just about saving a species. It was about bridging two worlds, about proving that differences could be strengths. An idea began to form in Jake's mind. It was risky, potentially disastrous, but it just might work. "High Counselor," he called out, his voice cutting through the din. "You doubt our worth? Our strength? Then let me prove it to you." The chamber fell silent, all eyes turning to the audacious human. "I challenge you," Jake continued, his heart pounding but his voice steady, "to a test of your choosing. Physical, mental, spiritual, whatever you want. If I win, you allow Queen Zora and me to proceed with our plan. If I lose," he paused, steeling himself, "I'll submit to whatever experiments you deem necessary." Gasps and excited whispers filled the air. Ilara looked at Jake like he'd lost his mind. But Zora's eyes shone with a mixture of fear and pride. Vex considered for a long moment, his cosmic eyes boring into Jake. Finally, a cruel smile spread across his face. "Very well, human. I accept your challenge. Prepare yourself for the trials of ascension, a test that has broken even the strongest Astari minds." As the council erupted into a frenzy of preparation, Jake felt the weight of what he'd done settle over him. He just gambled not only his own life, but potentially the fate of two worlds on his ability to pass an alien test he knew nothing about. Zora squeezed his hand. "That was either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish," she whispered. Jake managed a weak grin. Why not both? As they were led away to prepare for the trials, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just set in motion events that would change the course of history. Whether for better or worse remained to be seen. Trials of compatibility. The chamber of the Trials of Ascension was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It seemed to exist in a space between realities, its boundaries shifting and pulsing with otherworldly energy. As he stood at the entrance, clad in a form-fitting suit of Astari design, Jake fought to keep his nerves in check. Ilara, her face etched with worry, gripped his arm. "Jake, are you sure about this? We have no idea what these trials entail. It could be dangerous, even fatal." Jake managed a wry smile. "No turning back now, Doc. Besides, when am I ever going to get another chance to take an alien aptitude test?" Zora approached, her regal bearing somewhat diminished by the concern in her eyes. "The trials of ascension are not to be taken lightly, Jake. They are designed to test not just physical and mental prowess, but the very essence of one's being. Many Astari have been broken by them." "Well," Jake said, squaring his shoulders, "let's hope human stubbornness counts for something." As Jake prepared to enter the chamber, Zora suddenly pulled him close. Before he could react, she pressed her lips to his in a kiss that sent jolts of electricity through his entire body. It was like touching a live wire, tasting stardust, and falling into a black hole all at once. When she pulled away, Jake was breathless. Zora's eyes, those swirling galaxies of purple and gold, bore into his. "For luck," she whispered, "and to remind you what you're fighting for." Still reeling from the kiss, Jake stepped into the chamber. The entrance sealed behind him, cutting off Ilara's final words of encouragement and Zora's intense gaze. He was alone. Or was he? As the chamber's energies swirled around him, Jake felt a presence probing at the edges of his mind. Jacob Harrison of Earth, a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere intoned. You have entered the trials of ascension. Are you prepared to be judged? Jake swallowed hard. I am. The world dissolved around him, reforming into a barren, rocky landscape. The sky above was a maelstrom of cosmic energies, ribbons of light and dark matter swirling in mesmerizing patterns. The first trial, the disembodied voice announced, is the trial of adaptation. Survive, human. Before Jake could ask what that meant, the ground beneath his feet began to shift. The very elements seemed to war with each other. Patches of ground flash freezing, while others erupted in gouts of flame. The air alternated between thick, soupy humidity and thin, frigid gusts that threatened to freeze his lungs. Jake's military training kicked in. He moved quickly, analyzing the shifting terrain and adjusting his path to avoid the most dangerous areas. His Astari suit helped, adapting to the extreme conditions, but it could only do so much. As he navigated the chaotic landscape, Jake realized this wasn't just about physical endurance. The rapidly changing environment forced him to make split-second decisions, to anticipate changes before they happened. It was testing his ability to adapt not just his body, but his mind and instincts as well. Hours seemed to pass, though time felt warped in this strange realm. Just when Jake thought he couldn't take any more, the landscape stabilized. The voice returned. The trial of adaptation is complete. You have survived, human. But survival alone is not enough. Prepare for the trial of insight. The world shifted again. Jake found himself in what appeared to be a vast library, with shelves stretching infinitely in all directions. But the books, when he examined them, were written in no language he recognized. The symbols seemed to shift and change as he looked at them. To pass the trial of insight, the voice explained, you must find the knowledge you seek. But beware, not all knowledge is beneficial. Choose wisely. Jake's mind raced. What knowledge was he seeking? As he pondered this, he noticed that some books seemed to call to him, pulsing with a faint energy. When he touched one, images and sensations flooded his mind. Alien worlds, advanced technologies, the vast history of the Astari. But other books, when he neared them, filled him with a sense of dread. One nearly overwhelmed him with visions of cosmic horrors that threatened to shatter his sanity. Jake realized that this trial wasn't just about acquiring information. It was about discernment, about understanding the value and consequences of knowledge. He began to navigate the library more carefully, trusting his instincts about which books to explore and which to avoid. As he absorbed more information, patterns began to emerge. He started to understand the underlying principles of Astari science and culture, and buried deep within the cosmic lore, he found references to the genetic curse plaguing their people and tantalizing hints of a cure. Just as Jake felt he was on the verge of a breakthrough, the library faded away. The trial of insight is complete, the voice declared. You have shown wisdom in your pursuit of knowledge. But knowledge without action is meaningless. Prepare for the final trial, the trial of unity. The world reformed once more. Jake found himself in a vast, empty space. Before him stood a shimmering barrier of energy, beyond which he could see Zara. She seemed to be in distress, reaching out to him but unable to break through. To pass the trial of unity, the voice explained, you must join with the other. But be warned, this union cannot be forced. It must be a true melding of minds, bodies, and spirits. Jake approached the barrier, placing his hand against it. He could feel Zara's energy on the other side, alien yet familiar. He closed his eyes, focusing on everything he'd learned about the Astari, about their connection to the cosmic energies that permeated the universe. He thought of Earth, of humanity's struggles and triumphs. He thought of the kiss Zara had given him, the jolt of connection he'd felt. And he thought of the future, not just for their two species, but for the entire galaxy. As Jake opened himself up, allowing his essence to reach out towards Zara, he felt the barrier begin to weaken. Zara's energy met his, tentative at first, then with growing confidence. It was overwhelming, terrifying, and exhilarating all at once. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, Jake felt himself become something more than human, more than a starry. He was a bridge between worlds, a fusion of two species' greatest strengths. And then, with a flash of blinding light, it was over. Jake found himself back in the original chamber, gasping for breath. Zara stood before him, her eyes wide with wonder. "You did it," she breathed. "You passed the trials." Before Jake could respond, the chamber doors burst open. High Counselor Vex stormed in, his face a mask of fury. "Impossible," he roared. "No human could possibly." But he was cut off as Jake began to glow with an otherworldly light. The cosmic energies he had touched during the trials now coursed through him, visible to all. Ilara, rushing to Jake's side, gasped in awe. "Jake, your DNA, it's changing." As the assembled Astari watched in stunned silence, Jake Harrison, once an ordinary human pilot, became something entirely new, living proof that humanity and the Astari could not only coexist, but evolve together into something greater than the sum of their parts. The path forward would not be easy. There were still Krell invasions to repel, a genetic curse to cure, and two vastly different societies to unite. But in that moment, as Jake stood transformed, with Zara by his side and the fate of two worlds in their hands, anything seemed possible. Pursuit across the stars. The aftermath of Jake's transformation sent shockwaves through Astari society. The purist faction, led by a fuming High Counselor Vex, demanded further tests and containment, but the majority of the Astari, awed by Jake's successful completion of the Trials of Ascension, began to see hope for the first time in generations. Jake, still adjusting to his new hybrid physiology, found himself at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Astari scientists pored over his genetic makeup, marveling at the perfect fusion of human adaptability and Astari cosmic attunement. "It's remarkable," one scientist explained to a fascinated Ilara. "His DNA has reconfigured itself on a fundamental level. He's neither fully human nor Astari, but something entirely new." Jake flexed his hand, watching as faint tendrils of cosmic energy dance between his fingers. "That's great and all," he said, "but how does this help us cure your people? And what about Earth? The Krell are still out there." Zara, who had barely left Jake's side since the trials, placed a comforting hand on his arm. "The union we achieved during the Trial of Unity has given us the blueprint we need. With this, we can begin developing a cure for our genetic curse. As for the Krell," her expression hardened, "we must act quickly. They will not stop with Earth." As if summoned by her words, alarms began blaring throughout the city. A harried Astari officer burst into the room. "Your Majesty, we've detected a massive Krell fleet entering the system. They'll reach Australia within hours." The room erupted into chaos. Jake caught Zara's eye, seeing his own determination reflected there. "Looks like we'll have to multitask," he said grimly. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Jake found himself in the Astari war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the approaching Krell armada. His military experience, combined with his new insight into Astari technology, proved invaluable as they formulated a defense strategy. "Their ships are designed for overwhelming force," Jake explained, manipulating the holographic display, "but they sacrifice maneuverability. If we can use Australia's orbital defense platforms to funnel them into this asteroid field, we can even the odds." Zara nodded, quickly relaying orders to her fleet commanders. "What about Earth?" she asked. "We can't leave them defenseless." Ilara, who had been coordinating with the Astari scientists working on the cure, spoke up. "I might have a solution for that. The energy signature from Jake's transformation. We could use it to create a sort of beacon. If we can get it to Earth, it might supercharge their defensive capabilities, at least temporarily." Jake grinned. "Doc, you're a genius. But how do we get it there in time?" A sleek smile spread across Zora's face. "I think it's time we unveiled a little secret. Follow me." She led them deep beneath the city to a hangar housing a sleek, predatory-looking ship unlike anything Jake had ever seen. "The Cosmic Straker," Zora announced proudly. "Our most advanced prototype. It can cross galaxies in a matter of hours." Jake whistled appreciatively. "Now that's what I call a ride. But who's going to fly it?" Zora's eyes met his. "We are. Earth needs to see that humanity and the Astari stand together." And she hesitated. "I need you with me, Jake. Our connection, it's more than just physical or political. I think it's key to everything." Jake felt a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with his new cosmic powers. "I'm with you, Zora, all the way." As they prepared for departure, Ilara approached, carrying a small glowing device. "This contains the energy signature and preliminary cure data. Get it to Earth's leaders. And Jake," she hugged him fiercely, "come back in one piece, okay? Someone's got to help me write up this insane research paper." With a final nod to the Astari High Command, Jake and Zora boarded the Cosmic Straker. As the ship roared to life, Jake felt a moment of trepidation. He was about to pilot an experimental alien spacecraft across the galaxy while an invasion force bore down on two worlds. Zora, sensing his unease, reached out to grasp his hand. The moment their skin touched, Jake felt a surge of energy and certainty flow through him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The Cosmic Straker shot out of Astraea's atmosphere like a bolt of lightning, quickly leaving the planet behind. Through the viewscreen, Jake caught a glimpse of the massive Krell fleet approaching from the opposite direction. His heart clenched at the thought of leaving Astraea to face that threat alone. "They'll hold," Zora assured him, her voice confident despite the worry in her eyes. "Our people are stronger than they know, and soon they'll have hope again." As they prepared to make the jump to faster-than-light travel, proximity alarms suddenly blared. A squadron of Krell fighters had broken off from the main fleet and was in hot pursuit. "Hang on," Jake called out, his hands flying over the controls. The Cosmic Straker responded to his touch as if it were an extension of his own body, executing maneuvers that would have torn a lesser ship apart. Zora manned the weapon systems, her shots precise and devastating. But the Krell were relentless, more pouring in to replace those they destroyed. "We can't jump to FTL with them on our tail," Jake growled, narrowly avoiding a barrage of enemy fire. "We need to lose them." Zora's eyes lit up. "The Void Rift. It's dangerous, but if we can make it through, the Krell won't dare follow." Jake had no idea what a Void Rift was, but at this point he was willing to try anything. "Point the way, Your Majesty." The Cosmic Straker banked hard, heading towards what looked like a tear in the very fabric of space. As they neared it, Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, to flee from the wrongness ahead. "Whatever happens," Zora said, her voice tight, "don't stop. Don't slow down. If we falter in the rift, we're lost." Jake gritted his teeth and pushed the ship to its limits. They plunged into the Void Rift, and reality seemed to unravel around them. Jake's mind reeled as he tried to process what he was seeing, or rather, what he wasn't seeing. It was as if they were flying through a hole in existence itself. Alarms blared as the ship's systems struggled to cope with the impossible environment. Jake fought to keep them on course, relying more on instinct and his newfound cosmic awareness than on instruments. Just when he thought it couldn't take any more, they burst out the other side. The starfield that greeted them was unfamiliar, but blessedly real. "We made it," Zora breathed, slumping in her seat. "Jake, you did it." But their relief was short-lived. As the adrenaline faded, Jake realized something was wrong. The ship's energy levels were critically low, and a quick check of the star charts confirmed his fears. "Zora," he said grimly, "I don't think we're where we're supposed to be. The Void Rift. I think it threw us off course. Way off course." As the implications sank in, They shared a look of mingled fear and determination. They were lost in an unknown part of the galaxy, in a damaged ship, with 2 worlds depending on their return. The race to save Earth and Australia had just become much more complicated. Saving 2 worlds. The cosmic straker drifted through unfamiliar star systems, its once gleaming hull now scarred from their harrowing journey through the void rift. Inside, Jake and Zara worked tirelessly to repair what they could, acutely aware of every passing moment. "If we can just get the long-range sensors online," Jake muttered, deep in the ship's innards, "we might be able to figure out where the hell we are." Zara, her starlight hair dimmed with exhaustion, handed him a tool he couldn't have named a week ago. "Jake," she said softly, "I fear we may be too late. The Krell." Jake emerged from the access panel, grasping Zara's hand. The contact sent a familiar surge of energy through them both. "Hey," he said, meeting her swirling galactic eyes, "we're not done yet. Earth and Australia are still out there. And as long as we're breathing, we're fighting." A small smile tugged at Zara's lips. "Your human optimism is oddly comforting." As if in response to their determination, the ship's systems suddenly hummed to life. Displays flickered on, flooding the cockpit with information. "Yes," Jake pumped his fist in triumph. "Now, let's see where we—" He trailed off, his expression darkening as he studied the star charts. Zara leaned in, her brow furrowed. "What is it?" "According to this," Jake said slowly, "we're in the Andromeda Galaxy." The implications hung heavy in the air. They weren't just lost. They were in an entirely different galaxy, millions of light-years from home. Before despair could set in, Jake's mind raced with possibilities. "Wait a second. Zara, you said the Astari were guardians of peace across much of the galaxy, right? Does that extend to Andromeda?" Zara's eyes widened in realization. "The Andromeda Outpost. It's one of our most distant facilities, established ages ago to monitor this galaxy. If it still stands, then we might have a chance," Jake finished. "Can you get us there?" With renewed purpose, they set course for the Andromeda Outpost. As they approached, they were met not with the advanced facility they'd hoped for, but with an ancient, seemingly abandoned structure floating in space. "It appears the outpost has been dormant for centuries," Zara said, her voice heavy with disappointment. But Jake wasn't ready to give up. "Let's stop anyway. Maybe there's something we can use." As they explored the derelict outpost, Jake marveled at the resilience of Astari technology. Despite its age, much of the facility was still operational, albeit at a minimal level. "Look at this," Zara called out, gesturing to a massive device dominating the outpost's central chamber. "It's a cosmic corridor generator, or at least an early prototype." Jake's excitement grew as Zara explained the device's purpose. The cosmic corridor was a theoretical method of instant transportation across vast distances, similar to a wormhole but more stable. "If we can get this operational," Jake said, already examining the ancient controls, "we might be able to create a direct path back to our galaxy." What followed was a frantic race against time. Jake and Zara worked in perfect synergy, their unique blend of human intuition and Astari knowledge allowing them to coax the ancient machine back to life. As they worked, they shared their fears, their hopes, and deepened the bond between them. Finally, with a groaning of long-dormant systems, the cosmic corridor generator hummed to life. A swirling vortex of energy appeared before them, beautiful and terrifying in its power. "It's not stable," Zara warned, studying the readouts. "We'll have one chance to get through before it collapses." They rushed back to the cosmic straker, powering up its systems. As they prepared to plunge into the corridor, alarms blared. A massive ship had appeared nearby, a Krell dreadnought. "How did they find us?" Jake growled, evasive maneuvers already dancing under his fingertips. The corridor's energy signature, Zara realized. They must have detected it. The Krell opened fire, their massive weapons threatening to tear the outpost apart. Jake pushed the cosmic straker to its limits, weaving through the barrage as they made for the corridor's entrance. "We're not going to make it," Zara cried out as the ship shuddered under a near miss. Jake felt a surge of power course through him, the cosmic energy that now infused his being. Without fully understanding what he was doing, he reached out, not with his hands but with his mind, grasping the very fabric of space around them. The cosmic straker shot forward, enveloped in a cocoon of warped spacetime. They plunged into the corridor just as it began to collapse, the furious howl of the Krell cut off as they were hurled across the cosmos. The journey through the cosmic corridor was a kaleidoscope of impossible sights and sensations. When they emerged, they found themselves in orbit around a familiar blue-green world. Earth. But their relief was short-lived. The planet was surrounded by the remnants of a massive battle. Debris from both human and Krell ships littered the orbit. "We're too late," Zara whispered, horror in her voice. "No," Jake insisted, already angling the ship towards the surface. "Look, there are still defense platforms active. Earth is bloodied, but it's still fighting." They landed near what was left of the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, emerging to find a world scarred by war but unbowed. As Jake and Zara were rushed into a secure bunker, they were met with a mix of hope and suspicion. General Hartman, looking far older than when Jake had last seen him, stepped forward. "Captain Harrison, we thought you were dead, and you brought a friend." What followed was a whirlwind of explanations, strategy sessions, and frantic preparations. The energy signature and cure data they'd brought were quickly put to use, Earth's remaining defenses supercharged with Astari technology. But it wasn't enough. The Krell's main force was still en route, and Earth's resources were nearly depleted. "There's only one way to end this," Jake realized, turning to Zara. "We need to take the fight to them, hit their homeworld, force them to withdraw." Zara nodded grimly. "The cosmic straker can get us there. But Jake, it's essentially a suicide mission." Jake managed a roguish grin. "Well, Your Majesty, it's been one hell of a first date. What do you say we go out with a bang?" As they prepared for their desperate mission, Jake took a moment to stand on a hilltop, looking out over his battered but unbroken homeworld. Zara joined him, their hands intertwining naturally. "You know," Jake said softly, "when I joined the Defense Force, I never imagined I'd end up here, bonded with an alien queen, about to fly across the galaxy to save 2 worlds." Zara's laugh was like starlight-given sound. "And I never imagined I'd find hope for my people in the arms of a human pilot. Life, it seems, is full of surprises." As the sun set on an Earth still standing defiant, Jake and Zara shared a kiss that seemed to bridge not just their 2 species, but the very cosmos itself. Tomorrow would bring challenges, dangers, and the potential end of everything they held dear. But in that moment, with the fate of 2 worlds resting on their shoulders and the stars stretching out before them, Jake Harrison and Queen Zara of the Astari were ready to face whatever the universe had in store. The end, or perhaps just the beginning.